Standing up in McKinney. This is According to Callus. Coming to you on the 11th day of September, aka 9/11, the year of our Lord 2024. 23 years ago on this day was a very significant occurrence, and I'm not sure how to remember it because I don't think we can forget. But I think the larger question is what have we forgotten that was the corollary or that followed what happened on that day? And I think that in the last 23 years, there's a whole lot been said, written, and observed that there really isn't anything new that could be said. So before I get into the meat of the show today, I want to just say from the onset that a whole lot of people died that didn't have to. The how and the why seems to get lost. We're going to spend some time talking about that, and we're also going to talk about the consequences thereof. So fasten your seatbelt and let's do it. Before we get there, let me remind you, like, share, and subscribe. That's all I ask. That's all I need. The algorithm's not our friend. We have to overcome it. And, I got to be honest. It's been a discouraging month between scheduling and just real life. There's a whole lot going on that has not been conducive to me getting the episodes out in a timely fashion. Monday I just was wiped out from the weekend, and Tuesday was the Trump-Kamala debate, or I guess Trump-Harris debate would probably be the better way to say that. And no sense putting out an episode when you're going to have that going on. I'll probably watch it later tonight. I am recording this actually while the debate is going on, but I'm thinking about tomorrow. It is my intention to put out an episode Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this week. Get you your 3 episodes. I just didn't see the wisdom of putting it out on a Tuesday when nobody was going to listen. With that, let's get on with the show. Okay. So I am not going to focus on the details. In fact, I'm certain the more detailed I get, the more likely it is people want to pick it apart. So I'll just explain it this way. I got up that morning, went downstairs, was eating my cereal. My daughter was getting ready for kindergarten, I believe. And I had Fox News on in the morning. The morning show was quite good back then. I don't know how it is now since I don't watch it anymore. Not that that's a slight necessarily on Fox proper, just life changes. And they were talking about a plane that had run into a building in Manhattan. And that was this very strange thing, and they couldn't make... While they're talking about it and while they're showing footage, it appears that yet another plane slams into the other tower. Now, at this point, I'm fairly certain things are really bad. I don't know what to think other than we're going to be going to war. But guess what? I live in Texas. I've got a job to do today. My daughter needs to go to school. And, life goes on. I mean, yes, something terrible happened in New York, but there's nothing I can do about it. And it's out of my hands. So I drop my daughter off for school. I drive out to UNT, that's in Denton, about 35 miles down the road from where I lived at the time. While I'm at the school, they decide, and I think I went through my first class in its entirety. While we were in the second class, they decided to shut down for classes for the day. Now, I'm thinking, we're going to go to war. Don't know what that looks like. Don't even know exactly who we're going to be dealing with at this time. if I were to ballpark it, it's probably 11 o'clock Central Time, maybe 10:30, somewhere in that ballpark. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to go to work. I mean, there's nothing else for me to do. Now, remember, over the next week or so, because we did return to normalcy as far as functioning in North Dallas by the next day. There was people that died in a field in Pennsylvania. There was a plane that crashed into the Pentagon, as far as we knew. There's a lot of inconsistencies that have come into public knowledge in the last 23 years, but at the time, we knew that two towers had collapsed, the Pentagon had been hit, and a plane was forced to crash in Pennsylvania. So we knew something was going on. We knew something bad was happening and going to continue to happen. It was inevitable. No way we let this go. So the next week or so, because again, we don't know exactly what's playing out, what the plan is, what to do, who to target. Nobody's claiming responsibility. In about a week, we find out that there's 19 guys that apparently were behind all this. The majority of them, coincidentally enough, were from Saudi Arabia. At least by the records that we were provided, that miraculously escaped the inferno in the various crashes. And as the time has gone on, it's an inconsistency. But I recall the fever of the zeitgeist was, glass pool, reconstructing of the Afghanistan country, and, lots of dead effigies. I remember a lot of people were suddenly worried about Muslim people being targeted, as if, the average person had no idea that there was a difference between some people that were terrorists and just the average person that had the same religion. Apparently, we're all a bunch of morons, but the programming kicked in, right? Well, these were just fundamentalist extremists. These were not your normal average Muslims. All the provisos went in place, and again, we just stood by and prepared for war. Hey, but magically we dusted off this law that we were going to dub the Patriot Act to show that we're all good patriots. We're going to essentially take away the remaining protections of the Fourth Amendment to you, dear citizen. We're never going to abuse it. We're never going to use it on, actual citizens. We're only going to use this looking out, right? We're only going to try and prevent this kind of stuff from happening more. There's no advantage to us to have this, but it's just the right thing to do. I got to say, we listened to this, the sales pitch, the hard pitch, right? The entire time George Bush was in office. Now, at the time, 23 years ago, I'm not quite 30. I'm thinking about my responsibilities at home versus my responsibility to my shipmates. I'm thinking, how do I make this work? I have a higher responsibility. I have a family now, right? What's the proper way to approach this? And I watch all these things unfold. And I distinctly remember, and I know I've talked about this before, probably on multiple episodes. I just cannot help but reiterate this. Back in 2001, I told my fellow students, most of which I was at least 8 to 10 years older than, that they were not going to like the outcome of this new law. They were not going to like the things that got shoved through in the name of national security. So the time goes by. The deep state, right? The government monopoly on power spying, control, just continues to grow. And nobody seems to pay any attention to it. Nobody seems to focus in on what's going on here. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. There was a small minority of people, most of whom would call themselves libertarians or liberty activists, that were deeply concerned about this. What's odd is the very Democrats that would typically hate something like this, no, they were fine with it. And the Republicans that should have been worried about this, should have considered the bigger picture, nah, they didn't worry about it. It wasn't until we get to a presidential primary debate where it actually got brought to the forefront of everybody's mind. When Ron Paul had the timidity to stand up to Rudy Giuliani and just say, no, look, we own part of this. We've been meddling in foreign affairs for decades, for a century, however long you want to go back, and this is blowback. I mean, it doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it excusable. It doesn't mean it was something you just forgive and forget, but we need to understand how it happened. And he had the audacity to think, well, maybe we should just consider the words of why they said they did it, what their motivation was. Now, granted, I'm going to set this aside for just a second. It is fairly well known that they lie. Terrorists lie. Muslims lie to the infidel. Osama bin Laden, if you actually believe he put that out, probably was lying or not being completely truthful. Okay, fine. I'll give you all of that. But if you're going to try and figure out what the motivation was, even if it wasn't just him, if it was the 19 people that, voluntarily died, they were suicidal maybe, but what sold them? Could it have been their anger for us meddling around in their business? Could it have been their anger for us putting troops in Saudi Arabia or supporting Israel to their detriment? I mean, should we not at least consider there's a plausible rationale how they were able to get people worked up enough that they would go commit suicide? Is it possible? And I don't understand why we dismiss the concept of blowback. I mean, it seems to me that it makes just the most basic sense of any situation. I mean, think about it. You and assuming you have a younger sibling, but perhaps if you have an older sibling, you're sitting in the back of the car, and one of the siblings is smacking the other one, just low-key, just enough to annoy them, but not hurt them, and not get caught by dad, or sometimes mom when they're driving, just constantly just tweaking, poking, whatever. And then finally, the other brother hauls off and whacks them. It doesn't matter if they're older or younger, but as soon as they do that, as soon as that action's taken, and then, of course, they put on the waterworks, and they cry, and they moan, and they make a big deal about it. Well, if your old man's, anything like mine, a hand comes back behind you. Whack! What are you doing back there? Knock it off. I mean, or maybe your mom did it. I don't know. But it's not that hard to imagine, right? When you keep poking at somebody, they're going to eventually react. Sometimes it's well thought out and planned. Other times, not so much. Sometimes you get away with a whole lot more in your response, and other times, again, not so much. So, I mean, it's not that hard of a concept to wrap your head around. Yet, we still refuse to talk about it. We refuse to understand that. And now that we've left Afghanistan 20-some years after we went in there, and we left it markedly worse than when we went in. And, oh, by the way, we left billions of dollars worth of equipment over there as a reward for tolerating us. I fail to see the wisdom. And it's less about Biden versus Trump and more about just terrible government policy. The State Department's run by the same people it was 30 years ago. Nothing's significantly changed there, right? Maybe you change out the Secretary of State or a couple undersecretaries, but basically the bureaucracy stays the same. They do what they're going to do. The same thing could be said for our military branches, right? You change off a couple heads of generals or admirals or whatever, and you put in your own people. And normally, that doesn't really change anything. However, things changed. 4 years ago, they mandated that you should participate in an unproven medical procedure or risk getting removed. Well, I imagine that didn't go over so well with certain segments of the military. And I imagine perhaps those are the ones we needed the most to stay in the military. But coincidentally enough, they're out now. So they've been able to remake a large section of our military that we depend upon to do the right things and to protect our country. And sadly, I don't think it's the same that it once was. And this is a direct result, perhaps, of all the fighting that we were doing. And we're not even sure what. Now, look, I was a sailor. I was peacetime Navy. I clearly don't know what went on in either the first Gulf War or the second Gulf War. I missed both of them. I've spoken with veterans, and they say, generally, we were doing a good thing. We were taking care of people. We were making it a better place. Now, how much of this is that they're spouting off what they were told? How much of it is that they actually believed it? How much of it is, well, under optimal conditions and completely objective, things were slightly better after we were there than what they were before? I guess, but is that really what we were doing? I mean, if we were looking to go over somewhere and punish them for, killing thousands of people in our country and taking out 2 massive buildings and damaging a third, it seems to me that you just, quote unquote, bomb them into the Stone Age and you move on. But that's not what we did. Now, it's kind of a non sequitur to think that you can bomb somebody into the Stone Age that is, only a couple centuries removed from the Stone Age in many respects. But I mean, that's a mindset, right? We're going to punish you for your bad behavior. How dare you do something to us after we've been meddling around in your nation and in your area for decades? Perhaps they were just a staging ground, right? Perhaps maybe there was another agent that was involved here. Could it be Saudi Arabia? Could it have been Iran? Could it have been Pakistan? I don't know. But I kind of feel like at this point, there's a whole lot of people that ought to be looking back and go, maybe we were duped here. Maybe, just maybe, they pulled a couple of different fast ones here. Maybe people made a ton of money here and we lost. Maybe we weren't fighting for what they said we were fighting for. Maybe the goals they gave us weren't real or plausible. The whole idea is we were putting in a sacrifice now so we'd have a more peaceful future. We were going all in to improve the state of Afghanistan or fix things in the Middle East or whatever they sold us on. But it was supposed to be a sacrifice now to have a safer, brighter future. So let me ask you, does our future feel safer or brighter? Did we get what we were paying for? Are you very optimistic? I mean, all this stuff directly is connected. I mean, yeah, maybe once or twice removed from the actual event, but it directly follows. I mean, the enormous amount of money that we spent, the enormous amount of capital that was invested, the enormous amount of manpower that was involved, the debt. I mean, and keep in mind, we've had 2 significant recessions, perhaps even a depression, depending on how you want to quantify things, since this went down. And they just keep kicking in the can further down the road, pretending that, there's not going to be a consequence for this behavior. There's not going to be blowback on our behavior. BRICS only exists because of our bad behavior. The de-dollarization that is largely playing out is a direct result of our actions in our bad behavior. Now, it's something to be able to go back and say, well, we just didn't know. We did what we thought was best. It was the only way we could see to fix things. Our best intelligence led us to do X, Y, or Z. Or there was a real problem and a real threat there, and we've met it. We dealt with that threat, and yes, there were some terrible long-term consequences that we didn't see or we couldn't imagine, but we're going to have to deal with them now. They're not even doing that. What's interesting to me is the very underlying problem here is there's a large group of people that are taught that not only is it good, it is appropriate and you will be rewarded for hating other people. And when I say hate, I mean convert them or kill them. Now, and again, we've talked about this before, maybe it's a small percentage. But when you're dealing with folks that think that way, you kind of fall into a trap, right? Because when you fight back, you're killing them, but you're doing them a favor, and you're only breeding more because they're martyrs. You would have thought, at the very least, we might have learned that from our experiences in the Pacific Theater in World War II. Now, eventually they ran out of people because they had far less than we did, but we're dealing with a religious group that has north of 1 billion people to choose from. And even if they only get 2%, that's 200 million people. And if just 10% of them are, let's say, worthy adversaries, that's 20 million people. Are we really prepared to deal with that? I'm fairly certain they're not going to straight up fight us. I'm fairly certain we're not going to be invading their islands, right? As a matter of fact, the sad thing is, Europe has saw fit to invite them in. Spread the virus, if you will. Come on. We'll put you on the dole. We'll let you reproduce. We'll let you build your own temples. We'll let you take over parts of the city. We're gonna give you the respect that you would never give us when the shoe's on the other foot. How is the United States doing anything significantly different? I ask you. We're welcoming in the world. In amongst them are a ton, percentage-wise, of people that want to destroy us. They want to destroy the nation. They want to punish us, whether it's because we're Christians or because we're European, whatever, I don't know. And let me tell you, if you're a Latin guy or a black guy and you think that you're going to get away, you're not going to have to deal with this, yeah, I'm sorry. They're not going to deal with you either. There's plenty of Latin culture people. They got their issues with their gangs. They got their issues with their corruption. But guess what? Those people don't like that stuff either. They're not thrilled about it either. I imagine they're equally upset that our own government is allowing these people to come up here and cause troubles. Of course, you don't hear that. You don't see that. And they're probably fairly well aware of whatever threats coming out of the Islamic actors, right? And I know, it would be so easy to just paint with a broad brush here and say, oh, they're all evil. They need to be chased back to wherever they came from. And if they don't move, we kill them. Yeah, okay, that's hyperbole, and it's unlikely to ever occur. But there is a grain of truth in that, right? They're never going to be happy unless they're in control. One of the things I believe is a Winston Churchill quote, and I don't know that I'll be able to say it correctly, so I'm going to paraphrase it. And, even the broken clock is wrong. I'm not a huge fan of Churchill, but just hear me out here. He had a lot of experience dealing with the Turks, and he basically said, the thing about the Turk is he's either at your feet or at your knee or at your neck, right? He's either completely subservient or he's trying to kill you. That was, long story short. And it's interesting that we don't appear to have learned that. We don't appear to have understood any of that. And in fact, we just seem to be leaning our head back and exposing our neck and taking our arms and opening them wide, just thinking that somehow that's going to be changed. Well, I'm fairly certain that there's a whole lot of people that are from the Middle East that have not forgotten. We killed millions of them. Oh, and if it's not millions, we'll just say it's hundreds of thousands. We bombed the crap out of multiple countries there. And we justified it because 19 guys did something, which was absolutely horrible and not excusable. That's certainly not a proportional response. Now, granted, in 2002, I wasn't really interested in a proportional response. In 2024, in hindsight, it's like, yeah, maybe we should have rethought that. But again, you can't even get people to consider that possibility now. They want to dismiss that. They think you're out there. In closing, I'd just like to say that this is not an easy thing. It's not an easy topic. It's not something that there's, a direct, clean, clear answer. It's nothing that is, not muddy, not muddled, not confusing, because we don't really know the truth. And the truth that we think we know has been manipulated, and we just have to take some of it on faith. And I'm here to tell you that's very disconcerting. That there's all sorts of problems with that. But I wonder, we're supposed to remember, right? There was a song. But now I'm actually more concerned that we don't forget. It's not that we need to remember, it's that you don't forget. There's a whole lot of other stuff going on here. And keep in mind, I didn't even go down the rabbit holes about all the various events and things that played out up to and directly after those events on that morning. Because it doesn't matter for the purpose of this podcast. It's interesting. There's plenty of rabbit holes there. There's lots of things you can go looking into and probably get lost. But if we just take a step back and look at what played out and look at what we did and what we did in the consideration of whether or not there was a net positive for anybody, whether or not we're ever going to be able to move past that, whether or not we're going to be able to absorb the cost long term, I just don't know. And the fact that nobody wants to talk about it, nobody wants to admit it, and nobody wants to be honest with we the people. Hey, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't have done this. Hey, you know what? We weren't exactly honest about what happened here. This is what really was playing on. Or you know what? We found this out, but it was 10 years later. I mean, think about it. We're still waiting to find out what happened in 1963. My gosh, it's 60 years. We don't know. Not for sure. And even if they do come clean and they tell us, there's going to be a whole lot of people that still are not going to believe them. They're not going to trust them because, quite frankly, they haven't done anything to engender any trust from any of us. So when we're looking at the events that played out 23 years ago today, I don't want you to forget that there's a whole lot going on here that we just don't know. There's a whole lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of people that died that didn't have any reason to die. Not a good reason. Could it have been prevented? Yeah, probably. Could we have done things different? Absolutely. Could we and should we have considered our reaction after the fact? Sure. But I don't think anybody was willing to listen or consider. I think everybody had made their mind up and was now just looking for a way to justify their actions. And that's a dangerous situation to be in for anybody about anything. But that's where we're at. So that's just something that I would ask for you to keep in mind as we take the day to consider what happened 23 years ago today. And with that, this has been According to Callus, and I will see you on the other side.
TexianPride.com is the destination for Texans who want to show off their love for Texas. We don't settle for mediocre. Our shirts are made from 100% high-quality athletic cotton. They're cool, comfortable, and designed to fit and flatter any body type. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Visit TexianPride.com for your next stylish Texas tee.